before frozen meals, fast food, and supermarket aisles filled with endless choices. Dinner looked very different. Many families relied on meals so simple they barely sound real today. No long ingredient lists, no packaging, just cheap, filling food made from whatever was available. These weren't special occasion dishes. They were everyday meals, the kind families ate on ordinary weeknights, year after year. And slowly, without much attention, they disappeared. Not because they stopped working, but because the way food was produced, stored, and expected quietly changed. Here are simple meals families once ate every day, but rarely do anymore. 1. Bread and milk. The first one is so simple it almost sounds made up. Stale bread torn into a bowl, warm milk poured over the top, a little sugar if you had it, sometimes nothing else at all. That was dinner. Not a snack, not something before the real meal. For many families, this was the meal itself. It existed for a practical reason. Bread that had gone hard didn't get thrown away. It became food. Warm milk made it filling enough to last through the night. And together, they cost almost nothing. Meals like this were common in households where nothing was wasted. Leftovers weren't secondary. They were expected. Food stretched across days, sometimes across the entire week. Today, the idea of eating bread and milk for dinner sounds unusual, but for generations, it was normal. Simple, warm, and reliable. And it's one of many everyday meals that slowly faded as food became more abundant and easier to replace. If you enjoy these kinds of forgotten everyday meals, consider subscribing. There are many more like this, and each one tells a small story about how the way we eat quietly changed over time. 2. Potato pancakes. Potato pancakes usually started with leftovers. Yesterday's potatoes were mashed, mixed with a little flour, sometimes an egg, then fried in a pan until crispy on the outside and soft in the middle. It was a simple way to turn one meal into another. Potatoes were cheap, widely available, and lasted longer than many other foods. For large families, that mattered. A single pot could stretch across multiple days. Nothing was wasted. Dinner became lunch. Lunch became something new. And eventually, the leftovers became potato pancakes. Today, they sometimes appear in restaurants as a specialty item. But for many families, they weren't special at all. They were just another practical dinner made from what was already in the kitchen. And like many meals built around leftovers, they became less common as refrigeration improved and replacing food became easier than reusing it. 3. Creamed chipped beef on toast. Creamed chipped beef on toast was once incredibly common. Dried beef cooked in a simple white sauce, poured over toast. Salty, warm, and filling. The key ingredient was the dried beef. It lasted much longer than fresh meat, which made it practical before refrigeration became widespread. A small amount of meat could be stretched into a full meal. The sauce added volume. The toast made it substantial. This dish appeared in homes, cafeterias, and even military mess halls. It wasn't fancy. It was reliable. As refrigeration became standard and fresh meat became easier to store, the need for dried beef slowly faded. And with it, meals like this became less common. But for decades, this simple combination fed families when options were limited and practicality mattered most. 4. Rice and butter. Plain white rice, butter, salt. That was dinner. No sides, no sauces. Just a pot of rice and a small amount of butter for flavor. Rice was one of the cheapest foods available. It stored well, cooked easily, and could feed several people from a single pot. Butter added calories and richness, turning something plain into a complete meal. For families trying to stretch their groceries, this wasn't unusual. It was efficient. Today, rice is usually served alongside something else, but there was a time when it stood alone. As meal expectations changed and variety became more accessible, simple combinations like rice and butter gradually disappeared from everyday tables. 5. Fried bologna sandwiches. A slice of bologna fried in a pan until the edges curled, placed between two pieces of bread, sometimes with mustard, sometimes plain. For many families, this was a normal weekday dinner. Bologna was inexpensive, widely available, and lasted longer than fresh meat. Frying it improved the flavor and made it feel more substantial. It was quick, filling, and required very little. Meals like this were common when time and money were limited. A few ingredients, a hot pan, and dinner was ready. Today, fried bologna sandwiches are mostly nostalgic. But for decades, they were just another practical meal that helped families get through the week. 6. Beans and cornbread. Beans and cornbread fed families for generations. Dry beans cooked slowly, sometimes with a small piece of meat for flavor. Cornbread baked alongside. Beans were cheap, high in protein, and shelf-stable for long periods. Cornbread used simple pantry ingredients and added bulk to the meal. Together, they created something filling and dependable. This combination was especially common in rural areas and working-class households. Ingredients were affordable and easy to store. While still eaten today, it's no longer an everyday staple for most families. As diets shifted and more options became available, simple meals like this became less frequent. 7. Egg and toast. Dinner eggs and toast weren't just for breakfast. They were dinner. 2 eggs cooked in a pan, a couple slices of toast, maybe butter. That was the entire meal. Eggs were affordable, quick to cook, and filling enough to serve as the main protein. Toast made the meal more substantial. For busy evenings or tight budgets, this combination worked. It required little preparation and almost no planning. Today, eggs are mostly associated with mornings, but for many families, they once played a regular role at dinner time. As meal routines shifted and expectations changed, simple dinners like this became less common. 8. Macaroni with butter. Before boxed macaroni and cheese, families often ate something simpler. Plain macaroni, boiled and mixed with butter, salt, and sometimes pepper. That was it. Pasta was inexpensive, stored easily, and could feed several people. Butter added flavor and calories. This meal required very little effort and very few ingredients. It was especially useful when groceries were limited, but something filling was needed. Today, macaroni is usually served with sauce or cheese, but for many families, buttered pasta once stood on its own as dinner. Outro. These meals weren't designed to be impressive. They were built around practicality. Cheap ingredients, minimal preparation, enough to feed everyone at the table. For generations, they worked. They filled stomachs, stretched groceries, and made everyday life manageable. But as food became more available, more convenient, and more varied, many of these simple meals slowly faded away. Not all at once, just gradually. One generation replacing another. Today, they might seem unusual, but for millions of families, this was simply dinner. And in their simplicity, they tell a quiet story about how much the way we eat has changed.